All right, welcome back to another episode of Travel Ball Talk. I'm your host, owner of Play in School. My name's Rich Prado. Today we're heading down to North Carolina by way of Pensacola, Florida, to visit with Rob Wooten, owner, founder, CEO of C35 Baseball. And if you know Rob, you may know he's on the road right now with Double A team from Chattanooga for the Rays, for the Reds. I'm already swinging and missing, Rob. I'm sitting here looking at your Twitter account with a Reds logo and somehow come up with the Rays. Rob,
that's okay.
Welcome to the show, man. How you doing?
I'm doing well, Rich. Thanks for having me.
Well, this was a couple weeks in the making to get you on the show because, as I said, as I kind of blew, you're not with the Rays, you're with the Reds as a pitching coach, and so you're living the minor league life. I guess for the second time around, you did it as a player. Now you're doing it as a pitching coach. So you're currently on a road trip and sitting in a hotel somewhere in Florida.
That's correct. Pensacola, Florida. Not a terrible place to be. The beach is not a terrible place to be.
No. Before we hit record, I mentioned that just because of the sort of the timing of when I played versus starting playing in school, I sort of missed a little bit of your heyday as a player, specifically as a college player. So for me, as well as both our listeners who are tuning in right now, can you kind of walk yourself back? Give us your background, your bio. You don't have to go all the way back to T-ball, but definitely give us your where you grew up and then where you played college ball and lead us into professional baseball and where you're sitting now.
Sure. So baseball was always my love. Sports is my love in general. I love all sports. I played baseball, basketball. Played a little bit of football until I got hit. I mean, that was good. I was good on that. But I watched it. I loved it. Baseball was just something that I was okay at a young age. Played on some really fun little league teams, or Babe Ruth at the time, in Wayne County, in North Carolina. It was back then. It was a powerhouse for youth baseball, high school baseball, and then I went to high school at Charles B. Aycock High School. Pretty rich history there in baseball. They've done some really good things. We had some really good teams there as well. Was your prototypical prospect in North Carolina, hard thrower, was a top-ranked player in the state. Things kind of came easy to me at that point. And then I got to sign a letter of intent to go to my dream school with the University of North Carolina. I grew up a Carolina fan. Still a diehard Carolina fan. You'll hear a little bit more about that later. So went to Carolina, actually injured, hurt my shoulder my last year in high school. Pretty significant surgery that put me out and redshirted my freshman year in college at Carolina, and just kind of thought I'd come back and fit right back in and things would be easy. And, I would do what I do, but it didn't really turn out that way. And I spent 2 years trying to come back from the surgery. Was not very good. The training staff and the strength staff did an incredible job working with me every day, and it just didn't happen. And, to credit Coach Fox and the entire staff there, they stuck with me when they could have easily just let me go, because when I say I wasn't very good, I was not very good. I just never regained the velocity, didn't regain the command, didn't regain the confidence or anything. I was just a dead duck sitting on a bench watching some college baseball. I had a front row seat, which was nice, but it's also extremely frustrating because I could not get to the level of play that I was accustomed to. And I finally woke up. I went and played summer ball in the summer of '06, I believe it was, down in Wilmington for the Wilmington Sharks, and I just wanted to pitch every day. I didn't want to be a starter. I just wanted to get on the mound as much as possible because I'd missed so much time. And that's kind of where the confidence started to come back. The velocity started to come back, even though I was never a high velocity guy. It started to come back. I made a little bit of a mechanical change and I came into my redshirt junior year. I had a pretty decent fall season, and I remember in our preseason meetings before the 2007 season, they looked at me as a guy that could potentially come in and just get some righties out here and there. I still didn't have a significant role. Well, fast forward, I led the country in appearances that year, and had a pretty good year. We played for a national championship. I threw in every single playoff game, tournament game, except for one. That was game one of the national championship. So I broke a record there, I believe, the most appearances in a College World Series setting. And then the next year, I led the country again in appearances. Same thing, played in the College World Series. I think I was second all time in College World Series appearances in just 2 years. And that's not a credit to me, that's a credit to our team because we played in so many of them. We had an incredible team, an incredible environment, family atmosphere. It was just, we still stay in touch to this day. We built something there that is continued now, a tradition of winning. So it's the days that I can look back on in Chapel Hill were some of the best baseball days of my life. And it started out really difficult. And, a lot of things crossed my mind, and I share this with our players, with my organization a lot, because everyone expects to play. Everyone expects to play all the time. There's no such thing as sitting on the bench and knowing how to be a bench player, knowing how to be a teammate. Everything's given to them. And at that point in your career, nothing's given to you anymore. I don't care if you were the number one player in the state, number one player in America. You have to earn your spot on that team. And that's something that kids these days don't really understand. They everything has kind of been handed to them on a silver platter, and they expect the same thing when they go to college. So a lot of times when a parent or a coach or a player calls me and asks me about, playing time, I share with them my experience and how it made me better, and expect them to have that same mindset. No one wants to sit on the bench. I understand that. But, these experiences I can share with our players to help them, because it sure wasn't easy for me. But I made the best out of it. And if you would have told me during my sophomore year, as I was sitting there, that I'd play in the major leagues, I'd say you're crazy. But the staff stuck with me. I gave it everything I had. Was able to get drafted in the 13th round after my fifth year senior season, which is kind of unique.
Yeah, that is.
And went into pro ball, but I went into pro ball with a ton of confidence. I mean, just a ton of confidence. Not cocky, just confident that I could get it done. I still didn't really know how good I could be, if I had any chance at all. When I got drafted, I just remember thinking, hey, I got a team I can pull for now forever, because that's pretty cool to get drafted by a Major League Baseball team. So I went into pro ball, reached Double-A my first full season, and then went to the Arizona Fall League that year, and unfortunately, surgery number 2 was on the table with my first Tommy John. So it put me out for the all of 2010, and came back in 2011 to try to get back on track. Took me a little bit to get back from that one as well. 2012 was a little bit better. Got to AAA 2012. And then 2013, I was able to make my debut, July 26, 2013, in Colorado, where the All-Star game is tonight.
Mm-hmm.
So got to face Todd Helton as my first hitter, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, very cool.
And I spent all of 2013, most of 2014, and a little bit of 2015 in the major leagues with the Milwaukee Brewers, and what a great ride that was. A ton of learning experiences for me there. Also some relationships building there. Played in 2014. We were chasing a pennant. Unfortunately, didn't get it done, but I got to play in some very meaningful September games in Milwaukee, which was really cool. So obviously my time with the Brewers, 8 years, was incredible. Something I'll never forget. And then in that off season, I was able to sign a contract with the Atlanta Braves, my hometown favorite team that I grew up watching on TBS every night.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a dream come true. I got to play a year in that organization. Unfortunately, some injuries started to happen at that point, and I was not able to ever get back to the major leagues with the Braves. And then I signed with the Reds, and 2 other surgeries later, in 4 years with the Reds, I didn't play that much. I was more rehab and I had a second Tommy John and a second shoulder operation that really ended my playing career. However, I was able to stay connected and involved in the organization during these injuries, and they were really good to me, and I'll never understand why. They could have easily just sent me to the house packing and said, good luck in your future, but they kept me around for 4 years trying to get me back from injury. And then finally, actually after last spring training, I was coming back from the 4th surgery, and I was trying to give it one more go, and I threw a pitch in a live BP session, and I felt my shoulder go again, and I knew that was it.
Yeah.
3 days later, Corona happened, COVID. Spring training was canceled. I went home. I had a time just to kind of sit there with my family for 2 or 3 weeks to reflect. Made the decision that now is the time to hang them up and move on with my career in something different. I knew I wanted to be involved in baseball. I love baseball, so they invited me to kind of stay on in almost like a special advisor role or special assistant role in the summer, and just kind of got to listen in on meetings and talk with undrafted free agents about the organization. Learn the pitching side, obviously, from our new regime in the leadership role, the pitching side with Kyle Bodie and his staff, the drive line. So I got to know Kyle really, really well. Learned a ton last summer, just listening and doing some assignments and continued education. And then they hired me this past November to be the Double-A pitching coach here in Chattanooga. And it's been a really, really good start to this new chapter in my life. I really enjoyed it. Get to work with some really good players here. We have a good team. We have a good staff here. So I'm learning this side of it now at a pretty high level. The game's pretty fast at this point. I'm pretty fortunate to begin my coaching career at this level, and work with guys that have already impacted our major league team.
That's pretty amazing that you're essentially your first coaching gig is at the Double-A level. It's kind of awesome.
Yeah, I'm pretty fortunate.
I saw one of that. So I think I told you before we hit record. I played at William and Mary down in Colonial Williamsburg. That's way back then. You were most kids were signing senior year,
right?
And before I ended up committing to William and Mary, I actually was talking to a couple of D3 programs. One of them in North Carolina, a little school called North Carolina Wesleyan. That was that was coached by a guy named Mike Fox.
Right.
And obviously, I knew that there was a tremendous winning tradition at Wesleyan. I don't know how many. Gosh, at the time, I think he had gone to double-digit World Series. It was crazy how much success he had there before he went to Carolina. But I'm kind of wondering how much of what kind of an influence he had on you as a player, but also thinking about making a transition into coaching.
Not had, he still has influence on me as anything in life. I just was able to build a really strong relationship with him there. And obviously he continued to stick with me through the tough times. And there was times that we actually bumped heads with each other, didn't agree on things, but we built a relationship that was extremely strong, and it's still extremely strong. We still talk to this day on somewhat of a regular basis. He actually came to my facilities this past off season just to come visit and hang out with me and hang out with our players.
That's cool.
Something that he did not have to do, but he just called me out of the blue and said, "Hey, I want to come see you." And he came and saw me. But man, I can't tell you how many sit-down conversations we had in his office about life, about coaching. Even during my playing career, I'd come back every off season and spend probably 2 or 3 days a week in Chapel Hill, whether it was working out or rehabbing or throwing or just coming to hang out with him and Coach Forbes and all the staff there. But we would just have wonderful conversations, and he would, guide me in directions that maybe at times I didn't even know that could happen. And he enlightened me on some things in the coaching world that maybe I didn't know of that really helped me, make decisions later on in life. And he was one of the people that I called once I accepted the job here with the Reds. And he's still a guy that I talk to today on a regular basis. Just a tremendous human being.
Awesome. That's awesome. Well, that was pretty cool background, pretty cool experience you had. But we're here talking about travel ball, so we got to get into the travel ball side of things, and one of the things that impresses me, and then I'm going to let you kind of introduce C35 and talk about the program and the facility and the complex and everything else. But it's you hear people, you want to think and hope that these guys you're watching on TV are giving back to where they came from, right? And some do, some don't. But one of the things that kind of impresses me is you got a blue check next to your name on Twitter. You've played at the highest level, and yet somehow you figured out how to be super involved at the local level in the community that you came from. So kudos to you on that. And I want you to spend as much time as you want talking about how did you and whoever helped you start C35. Give us the background and catch us up to where we are today.
Yeah, wow, it's a kind of a crazy story. If you would have told me in my major league days, at least, that I would be involved and started a travel ball or player development organization, it never crossed my mind. But what did cross my mind in conversations that I would hear in major league clubhouses is that youth baseball, travel baseball is a mess. And I started to look into it more and figure out what they meant and why. And so actually in 2018, I was recovering and rehabbing my second Tommy John surgery out in Phoenix, Arizona. And I started to receive phone calls from people in the area. So before that, there was a facility in the Pinehurst area that I was asked to come and just help some kids here and there. And that's kind of how I started teaching the game with some pitchers. Obviously, mostly that's where the expertise was, or close to it. I wouldn't say expertise. I don't think anyone has all of that. But so I went and just helped some kids and started building relationships with young kids, older kids in the Pinehurst Sand Hills area of North Carolina. And then some phone calls started to happen, and people were asking, hey, would you consider doing something like this, just starting a team, under your tutelage, under your umbrella or whatever, and help this area, grow the game of baseball and bring a legit program and development program to this area. And I thought about it for a little bit, and I was like, man, I'm so busy with what I'm doing now, trying to come back from this injury, and I don't know how much longer my playing days are going to last. So that's, honestly, we made a couple phone calls, and there's some people that were there at home that were supporting it, and we decided to start an organization, and then the name just happened. I wanted to, obviously, my favorite colors in the world are Carolina blue. That's just that's never going to change. You can ask any of my players here. You can ask anyone that knows me. 98% of my wardrobe is that color. So I wanted to honor my college playing days or my alma mater. So I love, obviously, Carolina, and then the number that I wore in Chapel Hill was 35, and I actually wore it all through my minor league career. When I got to the big leagues, they just handed me a number, and I was happy just to get it, so I didn't care. And that was actually 47 that I wore for a while. But 35 always had a special place in my heart. Athletes are attached to their jersey number. They can tell you they're not, but they are.
Yeah.
And so was I. So we created the Carolina 35s, it's C35 for short. We created a logo. We started with two teams, a 10-year-old and 11-year-old team. We had 22 players. I think it was 11 on each team, and we started.
All right, we lost the call for a second, but last thing I heard was that you had two teams, 11 on each side, 22 guys, and take it from there.
Yeah, so those kids, they took their lumps their first couple tournaments playing. They were some really, really good kids. And it was kind of funny. I remember sitting in Arizona following their games nervous. I'm like, what in the world am I nervous for? But I cared. I cared that much about these teams. And then that's when the growth mindset sat in. I was like, man, I like this. I like helping. I like coming up with plans to grow. Then we purchased a facility, and that was a smaller facility. Then it grew and grew, and it grew to 10,000 square feet. And actually now we are opening up a brand new one here, probably with this week or next, 16,000 square feet. They call the C35 Sports Academy in Pinehurst. But back to the teams, and then we created some parents came to me about starting a showcase team, and I was not on board for that. I just look, I don't know that world right now, but I want to learn more about it, and I really want to kind of build our youth division. But they kept on and they kept asking, so I said, hey, let's try it and see. So we started a showcase division. We started with a 15U team. So then we had 3 teams, and they began their kind of showcase career, of which they're our 2022 team now, our oldest team. And a lot of those kids, there's some new ones on it for sure, but a lot of those kids were the originals. And their team has grown to be a pretty good team, much better team for sure than they were when we started. And then, Rich, it just continued to grow, and teams started to catch on, and people started to call, and they saw what was happening, and we put together some programs during the off season. We worked with our kids during the off season, and then other locations started to call. A friend of mine at a Fuquay Arena, more in the Raleigh area, called. He had just bought a facility there, and he was looking at putting an organization attached to it, and was talking about mine. And so we opened up shop there, and then teams started growing out of there. And there's expecting to be 13 teams out of there this fall. And then a group out of the Myrtle Beach area in South Carolina called that were entertaining another option with another organization, but they talked to us, and myself and my general manager, his name is Ricky Young, a really good high school coach, legendary high school coach at Richmond. Has coached for 25 years. We drove down to meet with them and their whole entire group, presented to what we can do and how we can help their players, and they came on board. So then all of a sudden we've got 3 different locations, teams at all locations, player development programs at all locations. And then so what we would do is we would go down and we would put on camps for our players, me and my staff, which is full of high school coaches, former players, collegiate players, current major league players. Tim Federowicz is with us. He's actually on the Olympic roster with USA, catcher. He went to school with me at Carolina. And then we just hired Johnny Nairn as our hitting director. He's obviously a former major league hitting coach. So we're putting people around us. We got Ray Bear as our sports performance director. Ray worked he's a partner of mine too at our academy in Pinehurst, and he worked in baseball for a while in Major League Baseball with 3 different organizations. He's now the human performance coordinator of the Special Forces, so he's literally one of the best in the world at what he does. And he actually just worked the first ever MLB Combine in Cary.
Oh, nice.
He was a part of that sports performance team. So we have a cognitive-based mind and body program at our academy, where it's all based on brain speed, trying to speed your brain up to react. Obviously that helps in baseball, but it helps in all sports too. So he trains all athletes at our academy. But our players come in during the winter. We have a 10-week program in our academy where it's an hour and a half nonstop moving, hitting, throwing, fielding, conditioning, sports performance, our cognitive-based brain speed. I mean, reactive lights, and there's a lot of stuff that goes on in there for an hour and a half, and those kids walk away, they got a lot done, and they get out, and they're ready to come back the next day. It's fun. We create an environment. We got music blasting. It's a really, really unique environment. So we've actually had people to come in and watch, other coaches from other organizations come in and watch, and now they're wanting to join. So, it's just something that it kind of grew organically. It wasn't meant to grow like this. And then this past off season, a complex in Wayne County, where I'm from, that was built when I was in high school, and I remember working out there every day. It came to my attention that it may possibly be for sale, and so I looked into it. I partnered with my brother. He's got his MBA from Carolina, so he's got a business background. Him and his wife own an architect company in D.C. So we went and looked at it, made an offer, accepted, and so now we own it was called ECAP, Eastern North Carolina Athletic Park, and now it's called the C35 Sports Complex. It's got 7 baseball fields and softball fields. It's got 15,000 square foot inside training center. It's got a tower in the middle of the first 4 fields that has a restaurant, and then it has some boxes above that on 2 different levels. It needs some work. We're putting some work into it now. We're talking with the city. We're talking with investors and donors, and trying to create a very unique experience there for not just our players, but for all youth level players. We want to have all teams in the area work out, train there, practice there, work with our staff. I'm not I don't care what jersey you wear. If I can help you and our staff can help you, we will. And then we have also started a softball division. Paige Walters, former All-American at Georgia Tech, high-level executive at TBS. She has started a softball division under our name, and we're growing that side as well. Baseball is for sure large right now. We're looking at possibly 30 teams across the Carolinas come this fall, maybe even closer to 40. And the softball side is growing too. So
when you say 40 teams,
when
you say 40 teams, is that from like 8U to 18?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
When you said softball, my ears perked up. Obviously, we're both baseball guys, and I don't have a daughter, but I've worked with some softball organizations in the past, and I don't think it was 2 or 3 weeks ago I tweeted out, how come more of the travel baseball organizations don't have softball? And I get it. Like when you kind of get into it, it's almost like a different thing going on. It's a little different animal. But it just seems from a leadership standpoint, from a back office standpoint, there's so many crossovers that it makes a lot of sense to leverage that one logo, that one brand, and have both sports under one house. So that's really interesting that you guys have done that. Whether that was in the original plans or not, hey, let's go for it, right?
I don't think anything was in the original plan. I think it was just, hey, let's help these kids and let's start this organization. And now, we're growing into a brand that people across the Carolinas for sure, and some people even regionally are noticing our brand. And
I noticed it.
We're attracting players.
I noticed it.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Well,
so, so I want to ask you more about this complex. I've got it pulled up on the website. You said 7 fields. What's the split on which one of those are little fields and which one of those are big fields?
Big fields. Yeah. So there's 3. The first 3 fields in the front are all smaller fields, 200-foot fences. And then the 4 fields kind of in the back are the bigger fields. However, they're all skin fields as of now. And you can adjust the bases, and you can got temporary fences and all that. And there's tournaments run out of there right now, pretty much every weekend if it doesn't rain. Rain has been atrocious this summer so far. But there's the plan is to really revitalize the ballpark. Obviously, the vision is turfing all the fields, completely redoing the inside of the training center, and just really making it a first-class training center, not just for our players and our organization, but for players all over. But we would like to be able to hold, our scout days and all those things that we can do at our home ballpark. That would be really, really neat to do one day. But also host tournaments and have peak perfect game and have USSSA, which we're talking to right now. I mean, there's so many different avenues to create a really unique experience there that's what I gravitated towards, and that's what we're working towards right now. It's going to be a process that we just bought it. It's a 3 to 5 year plan to get that up and running like we want. But if it grows like C35 baseball has, I think we'll be in okay shape.
That's cool, man. That's great. I think the story of a kid in high school working out at a new facility, and then 15 years later, whatever it is later, facility comes up, becomes available, and that kid grew up to be a big leaguer, comes back and buys it and gives back to the community. I think that's a pretty good story. I think there's just about a Disney movie somewhere in there.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, so hey, can I buy the rights to that? I wanna.
Sure. No problem.
So before we hit record, and you're definitely a little bit of a different guest. We don't have many, big leaguers and AA coaches come on the pod. I did ask you what your drop dead time is, and I have a handful of these other questions, which I've been sort of the standard questions, and I'm looking at my clock, and it looks like we got about 10 minutes. You think we could hit a couple of these and kind of
we're fine.
Wind you up and let you go? Well, let's hit I'll tell you what. Let's move quickly through a couple, and then because there's a couple that I get the impression you'll probably spend a little more time on. So let's hit this first one and just answer this kind of like it's a rapid fire, and then we'll move to the next one. And as we go down this list, you can expand and expand. The first one is written as what book should every coach read, but it really should be, that question should change to what book, podcast, video, what resource do you think every coach should read or check out or learn from?
Yeah. First, everyone should listen to your podcast. There you go. That should be
You're invited back whenever you want.
That should be number one. But I don't read a ton of books. I just, with my jobs and then my day job here with the Reds, which takes a lot of time and learning a lot of new different things. I don't have a ton of time to sit down and read books. It's never been my thing anyway. However, I did read the Matheny Manifest, and I'm sure most
great one.
Travel ball coaches, and it just really hit home to me. And obviously, playing across the field when Matheny was the manager of the Cardinals, just kind of seeing what kind of intense competitor he is, and he still is as a manager with the Royals. I read his book, and it was really, really good and really unique, and it's something that we have really strongly encouraged all of our parents to read. Just so they know the role that they play in their kid's life. So that's one I would really recommend to any listener on this podcast for sure.
Love it. Actually, I feel like I did I used to do this little book club, like this online book club, and I feel like I did a video on that book or listed it on a resource. I had a list of 5 or 10 of my recommended books way back when, but I haven't heard anybody mention it in a few years. I'm so glad you mentioned that book. That's a good one. That's worth going back and looking at again. Besides books, what other resources are you tapping into to kind of further your development and learning?
Oh, well, I mean, I get to work for the Cincinnati Reds, so that's a pretty good resource. Mm-hmm. I get material on a daily basis here with some people that are much smarter than I am, and if I can blend a lot of this new learning, new ways, new technology, and blend that with my experience of playing, and even though I've only been coaching professionally for several months now, I've been coaching for a while. Whether it's a 8-year-old or a college player or even a professional player. So, I get a first. I'm in school every day, basically, and learning from some of the best in the world. And obviously, our pitching coach in the big leagues, Derek Johnson, probably one of the best pitching coaches in the game. So to have a relationship with him and learn from him and learn from Kyle Bodie and learn from all of our leadership team here with the Reds, not just pitching, but just player development staff as a whole. It's been a true blessing, that's for sure.
Yeah, awesome. Bodie seems like a polarizing figure. So, at least on Twitter, people love him or hate him, or not him personally, but his methods and so it's kind of awesome to see get put in at the highest level, and the sort of the proof is going to be in the pudding, right?
Oh, no doubt. He's awesome to work for. I'll put it that way.
That's cool.
He's great to work for.
That's cool. All right. Yeah. This question, second question, what regret or failure changed the way you coach for the better?
That's a good question. And, my coaching career as far as at this level, professional level, is so young.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have once I go home in September or October, I can sit down and kind of reflect on the year. It's moving so fast right now. And, we've had some success here as a team, as individuals, but we've also had some failures, of course, and the game is extremely fast. So when I can go home and kind of sit down and reflect on the year, I've already learned from things now. I mean, we won't get into everything because it'll take forever, but I mean, you're learning on an everyday basis. But, as far as our organization, we have so many great coaches that have volunteered their time to help us. We've got some higher level execs with the organization that do a tremendous job, because if you're listening to this call, I'm not home. I'm not in North Carolina. I'm in Pensacola, Florida at the moment. And my organization is in fantastic hands. So we put the right people around us to help, guide this organization in the right direction.
Yeah, that is pretty unique. That that the head of the club is not to be I don't want to put this the wrong way, in a negative way, but essentially an absentee owner right now. Yeah. But what allows you to do that is the team you've put around you. So,
well, let me say that I am heavily involved from afar.
Absentee owner was probably a poor way of putting it, but you're not.
No, you're correct. I am involved. I'm talking to our players on a daily basis. Obviously, this is real hot time in the recruiting trail. So I'm talking with coaches. I'm talking with our players. I'm talking with our players' families, as well as other people in our organization that do this also. But a couple of Mondays ago, we had an off day, and our 23 national team was playing at Lake Point, which is about an hour and a half from my house in Chattanooga. So I went.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
I went. I watched our team, hang out with our families, and I wish I could do that more. And then in the off season, I will be heavily involved. I'll be around for workouts, practices, individual work. During the fall schedule, I will try to get to a big event or two. But also, I'll travel around and watch our youth teams play, because they're just as important. Because I kind of, when I started to really, really build this thing, I wanted to kind of model it after a major league organization, and you're only as good as your farm system. So we're investing a lot into our youth, teaching our youth, giving them all the information and resources that they want and need to be successful. And we know all these players are not going to play at a high level, but we want to give them every chance possible, because that's why they're playing. That's what their dreams are. And if you don't have the big dreams, how can you reach them? So, I'm highly involved, to put it that way.
For sure. Here we're gonna in the with respect to your clock here, I'm going to skip the next question and go down to what's question number 4. What's the one piece of advice you'd give someone that's starting a travel ball organization or opening up a facility? And it sounds like you've done both pretty recently. So what's that piece of advice you give to a coach just thinking about starting out?
Yeah, I think we've already kind of touched on it a little bit. If you're starting an organization, you've got to be prepared for growth, which means you've got to have infrastructure. You've got to put people around you that buy into your philosophy, that buy into your vision, that you can create a working but also a friend relationship with, that you can do this on I'm telling you, these people that work I hate to say work for me because that's just we all work together. We all do this thing together. And when we go on trips and we do our camps during the off season, we stay at a hotel in Myrtle Beach, or we go to Atlanta for a big tournament. Man, we have some fun. Like we talk baseball. We just have a good time, doing this together. And then as far as opening a facility, kind of the same mindset. Just you have your vision, and you're going to have ups and downs. Opening a facility is not the easiest thing in the world to do, because there are costs to it, there are bills to it, and you've got to stay the course. You got to stay on track. Some things, one day things look fantastic, and the next day there's a roadblock, and you can't let that roadblock affect you. Just with the complex that we have, there's been numerous tournaments rained out, and we know the problem, and we're just staying on course. We're not going to rush to any solution. We know the problem, but we're going to stay on course, stay on vision, and we will fix that problem, just like we did when we laid out our plan, just so we make sure we're doing everything the right way, instead of doing something quick and cutting corners. So that's kind of what I would say.
You're going to put in 7 domes.
Yeah, yes, I need 7 domes. I need 7 Miller Parks like we had in Milwaukee. We could open the roof.
Yeah, hey man, when you can start controlling the weather. I think amateur baseball will be the furthest thing from your mind.
Right.
Golly,
exactly.
Yeah, man.
Well, if there's any billionaires listening to this, they can give me a call, and we'll work on naming a dome after them.
There you go. Hey, let me tell you, we had this. It wouldn't be the first time a philanthropist heard a conversation on this podcast and reached out to a guest. Happened here very recently. I won't name names or organizations, but it got back to me, and it's honestly, man, made me feel good. I wasn't even part of it. Didn't even, it's just you highlight good people, and other good people tune in, and kind of matches get made, man. It's pretty cool.
That is cool.
Yeah. So if there's any billionaires who want a dome or 7 domes named after them in Wayne County, I know a guy.
Yeah, we'll take turf fields. We don't even need a dome. We just need turf fields. That's it.
For sure. For sure. Let me tell you what, you turf a few of those fields, and all of a sudden that place becomes one of the hottest commodities in the region.
Well, that's the vision. That's the goal. But again, we can't just go do it right now until we take a step back, observe the area, observe how things are done, and then we go in, we find the right people, the right investors, we start getting more teams, more members, and that's when you can start, putting more back into it.
For sure. Those turf fields aren't cheap, I'll tell you that.
No, they're not. No, they're not.
All right, so this is sort of piggybacks off of this. What one change could be made to travel baseball that you think would have the biggest positive impact? If you could wave a magic wand, what do you think could be done?
Yeah. It's obviously people play the travel baseball circuit because they enjoy it, because it's fun. They love going to new places. They love playing new teams. They love being in different environments. They love the challenge. The one thing I don't like is some of the structures of the tournaments, and I know it's not what they would like either, but one of our teams has to play 3 games in one day. There's just no way that you can do that and keep everybody fresh or healthy, and it puts the coaches and the players in a really difficult situation when you're playing 3 games to try to win on Sunday. And I know there's probably not many solutions to that, but if I could change one thing, double headers are okay. We play double headers at every level in the sport, but you don't see triple headers. You just don't see it. And if professionals are not doing it, if collegiate players are not doing it, which professionals are in the best shape you could ever imagine and have the best resources you could ever think of, and doctors and trainers and strength coaches, why should 8, 9, 10, 11, 12-year-olds do it? It's just not. It's not smart. It's not healthy.
Well, I'll go one step farther. One of the biggest tournament companies in this whole space, when you get to the end, we're talking about the high school age groups. When you get to the end of the event, you're talking about having to win. once you get through pool play, because pool play takes all week, and then you make it into the tournament. A couple years ago, I saw where the two teams that played for the title, they had to play 5 games within essentially a 24-hour period, and the same tournament companies promoting Pitch Smart, and you're just going, those two things don't seem to line up. You're talking about taking care of arms, but I don't know how you square those two things. And it honestly it goes beyond just the pitchers and the technical number of pitches and innings pitched. It goes beyond that. Like, who's catching? Who
exactly.
Who's out there? Yeah. Who's out there in center field and shortstop for all of those innings under such a short amount of time? Yeah. It's just
not to mention that center fielder is standing there for 2.5 games, and then he's brought in to pitch.
Exactly.
On an exhausted body. It's just not smart.
It's not. And and that's for. Nobody's going to walk away when it's the biggest tournament of the year, the biggest tournament of the summer sort of situation. But I've heard in smaller, local, regional type of events where, and I kind of wish some coaches would have the courage to do this more often. You go into the weekend with your pitching plan, and you stick to your plan. And all of a sudden, if you get extended beyond the plan, have the courage to just say, "Hey, man, I appreciate you offering us this third game on Sunday afternoon, but we're out of pitching. We're good." So it's like, and
it's so hard to do that.
Of course it is. Your parents are going to be all over you.
Yeah, they don't understand.
The kids want to win. They want that plastic ring. The parents are still caught up in the box scores.
And that's why it shouldn't be.
It shouldn't be put in that position.
To make.
Correct.
No.
Correct.
No, they shouldn't.
This is one of these places where travel baseball is really, it's weird in comparison to real baseball, like the baseball that we watch on TV, because you would never be put in that position. Never.
No, you would not. And if I did that to one of our pitchers, I'd be fired.
Yeah, it's such a backwards thing where, like, travel baseball has so many positive benefits, from an efficiency standpoint for recruiting. It's gotten dialed in. But then you see these things that are sort of outliers. I think it's a really big time. I'm glad you kind of brought this up as the thing that you would do if you were put in charge of travel baseball. Well, listen, you have a complex, and you're going to have games on your field. I challenge you and everybody who's going to be down at that complex in the next few years to keep that in mind, and don't get pressured into making into being put in positions that you feel uncomfortable with.
No, you're right. And if we create our own organization to run tournaments, that will be at the forefront of the structure of the tournament for sure. Right now, we're in the hands of other organizations that have their own structure and their own philosophies in place that we really can't do anything about except complain, and complaining does nothing for anybody. But yes, if we were able to do that, which is part of a vision, a long-term vision, then I think that would be one of the first things we discuss as an organization.
Well, Rob, this has been fun, and we're only about 5 minutes past the time I promised you we'd get off. So that's not terrible. I enjoyed getting to know you a little bit, and I hope we can get to know each other a little more. If I always do a terrible job, I should mention this at the beginning. C35baseball.com is the website, and at Rob Wooten 35 is his personal Twitter account. So, for that one listener who's still on board with us to this point, you can go track him down. I'll put all the links in the show notes. Do you have any parting words of wisdom or encouragement or advice for any coaches that might still be listening?
No, what I would say is just, the world we live in right now with the COVID and all of that, a lot of these older players have been put in really tough spots. So just do your best, work with them, try your best to get them exposure, safe exposure. Do your job as far as networking with coaches. And it's just been a really difficult year for these high school players to be seen. And now the pressure is all on them to perform at the highest level they possibly can, because it's such a short sample size for these coaches to see. So you got to take the pressure off of them a little bit, show them some love, and just help them kind of through this process. That's kind of what we're trying to do with our guys.
Love it. Well done. Hey, hang on one second. I'm going to stop the recording, and there's my puppy. Don't go anywhere. Hang on one second.